Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Variety Sports Network presentation of the Next Left Turn. Man, Texas today. It was a good race. It was a lot of fun. We had a lot of action. Action I was hoping for the last 3 weeks that we didn't get. We got it today. We had cautions galore. I think we tied a record at the track with 16 total cautions. The very last one, the last lap, and double OT would have been the 16th caution. So I think that sets a new track record. But man, Aaron, what'd you think of today's race at Texas?
Ooh, I mean, in the words of Darrell Waltrip, boogity, 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 let's go racing, boys. My goodness.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. The last 4 cautions gave me like such anxiety because of what happened at the end, which we'll talk about later. But oh my God. So it actually tied. If it is 16, it tied a career high. I think the last one was 2022. They had 16.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I felt like it was caution after caution after caution. Like as soon as the second stage hit, I was like, oh my God.
Well, because getting through the first stage, I was kind of like, all right, well, this is going to be your typical super speedway race. We're not going to have a ton of accidents and issues. But did you get to watch the pre-race coverage?
No, I didn't watch any.
Okay, so I did. For the tracks I'm very, very unfamiliar with, I try to get a little bit more so I can be caught up and beyond. So a lot of the conversation today on pit road was the track's going to be a lot hotter than it was in practice and qualifying. Hotter means slicker means faster, but also means less control, which we all love. This track runs 180 to 190 miles an hour, depending on the setup and the cars and how it's going. They were running upper 180s to 190 today. Great times, great speeds, but the big conversation on pit road between the drivers and the analysts, Kevin Harvick and Greg Biffle and Mike Joy and those guys, it was very much, we don't know what's going to happen. It was the track was described as sketchy by multiple drivers, which coming to the pre-race, I was like, oh, cool, because I didn't get to watch qualifying. And I didn't even get to go. I recorded and didn't have enough time this weekend to go back and watch it. So I was like, what do you guys mean? And then I heard that Jimmy Johnson or Kurt Busch or Kyle Busch had wrecked in practice and Jimmy Johnson was having a rough time. And so I was really intrigued watching the pre-race. So again, we were looking for how the tires were going to hold up. Fuel window was going to be good. How slick was the track going to get? How fast was it going to get? And was the track going to get wider as the race went on? And for those of you who don't understand what the track gets wider, what we're talking about is how many lanes the drivers would have. They're going to have grip and they're going to be able to keep up speed. So that's the widening of the track. And I know for a fact they didn't put any resin down on the upper 2 lanes of the track for this race because it had already been driven in pretty good for the last 2 nights from the truck race and the Xfinity race. So that's kind of the pre-race special that I'm going to give you guys, like that 1 hour condensed into that. Aaron, let's go racing. All right. So we started this race with Kyle Larson and Tyler Gibbs on the pole.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that because I was like, oh, wow, it's like 117 out on the track. Oh, yeah. And then obviously in the first stage, we had that fire in the pit. But I get now it makes sense what you're talking about in the pregame because of what we're going to talk about with Jimmy Johnson.
Which was a shocker, man. That was, he's the all-time, I've got it down here in the notes, actually. He's the all-time leader for wins at Texas. Mm-hmm. And obviously, they weren't running at Texas when Richard Petty was running and Dale Earnhardt was running. I mean, they might have had a couple Texas races before Earnhardt was gone. I don't think so, though. But, I mean, Jimmy Johnson has the most wins, and nobody else is even. I think the closest guys behind him are 5 wins each, I think. It's down there. I got it in the notes. I did the notes earlier in the week to do some prep for you guys. I wanted to give you a little bit more content, something else to look at besides my face when you listen to us talk. Let's get into it. Let's get to the heart of it. So Kyle Larson, again, 3rd week in a row, he's on the pole. Hendricks dialed in once again like they have been all season long. Ty Gibbs is up front in one of those Toyotas. The Toyotas have been strong all season long too. So, of course, I was like, oh, Lord, here we go again. I think I actually messaged you about it, and you came back with the Fords are obsolete at this point. I think it's what you said. And I was like, well, let's hope it's time for a change. But let's get going. So green flag drops. Larson clears Gibbs right off of turn 2, and he gone. It's like he gone. Nobody was even close. Gibbs, though, until the first set of pits, he kept like that 1 to 1 1/4 second distance gap behind him. So it was almost like he was playing a strategy from what I felt watching the first part of the race, the opening segments. Did you have the same feeling, or where were you at? What was your feeling on how the race opened up and how the first round went?
Pretty much, I was like, okay, it's gonna be the Kyle Larson show, and I didn't realize that he's already led 500 laps so far this
Oh,
season. I was like, holy Jesus! So really thought it was gonna be Kyle Larson for at least a good amount of the race. I mean, Truex was kind of getting there, I think, near the end of the first, but nah, I really thought it was just gonna be the Kyle Larson show. And in the first stage, there were 3 Hendrick guys in there. So I was like, all right, so which one is it gonna be? Because William Byron won last year, and then I think Kyle Larson won 2022. So I was like, all right, so definitely gonna be a Hendrick guy
oh yeah.
gonna dominate today, but I wasn't sure which one.
I mean, Hendricks just looked good. So good. The Chevys and as a whole, as a manufacturer, have looked fantastic this season. Their straightaway speed is ridiculous. The Toyotas have the handling in the turns, and it seems like the Fords are just a step behind in both parts, and that's why the Fords can't get a W. Now the Fords have always been good at restrictor play racing, and we go to Talladega next week, so maybe a Ford team's got a chance. Maybe Stewart Haas can get it done. Maybe Penske finally gets back in victory lane, but we'll talk about that next week for next week's show. Um, Next week's show is going to be at a different time and a different date because I'm on vacation next weekend. So I don't know if I'll be back. I'm going to try to be back for next Sunday's show Sunday night. If not, we'll go Monday night, just so you guys know. We'll clear that up later. But we get to lap 36 and we get the first set of pit stops rolling in. The green flag stops, no cautions at this point. And this is kind of interesting because you referenced this earlier. There was a fire on pit road. Did you by any chance get to see that clip over and over again and see how bad the fire got, or did you just see what happened before the fire happened?
So pretty much what I saw for the fire, because they talked about it, it was like I didn't realize it was Ty Gibbs. I was trying to figure out whose it was because Ty Gibbs was the only one who didn't pit, and he couldn't pit because everyone was in his way to get out there. So it looked like it was like a 2-lane type fire, and they were putting it out, and I was like, wow, this track is really hot today. And then they finally put it out, and then Ty Gibbs had an opening, and he could finally get in there and go and pit. So.
I mean, he had to stay out for like 2 or 3 extra laps total.
Yeah,
And then when the lap he really tried to come in, he was getting blocked basically by cars on the inside because the guys had already cycled through. The guys who went in the pit first had already cycled through, and they were at speed, and he was losing ground. Those guys as they came back in, where it kind of messed him up a little bit. Didn't have a long-term effect, but it was definitely odd to see this big line of fire in the middle of a pit box, and you could see Gibbs's crew saying, "No, don't throw down dust, don't throw down the sand, whatever they put down to cover fire," because he's still got to come in. So they were blowing it out, and they got it out, and he made his pit stop, and everything was fine. But definitely was a little bit of excitement on the first round of pit stops that we're not used to. I don't know if I've ever seen a fire caused from that on pit lane myself. But we keep going, and we get up to our first caution, and it's Jimmy Johnson. He had a bit of a rough one, and he gets loose, and we see this a lot today. And this was a lot of the talk in the pre-races: are the cars going to be able, when the track got warmer and it got a little slicker, the car's going to be able to hold tight and not lose the back end because they have those bumps in turns 3 and 4. But let me bring over this little clip. I'll show you guys how that goes down. He's all by himself. He just loses control. Here you go.
Yep, there was like a little bump right there in that turn, which is what happened. Because I think who was the next guy? Did Christopher Bell did the same thing?
Yeah, I got his too. But Kevin Harvick right there was talking about those little bumps, just like you were saying, it's those little bumps in that turn that cause that friction. And what they were doing with this track is it wasn't as much about the diffuser and the spoiler package this time. It was more about the suspension and how low they could get the car to the track so it could stick and keep the rear end down so it wouldn't slide. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And, they suspected there were going to be, I think it was Brad Keselowski in his interview said that he figured there were going to be cautions, or he implied that there were going to be cautions, and how well were guys going to stick to the track. Speaking of Christopher Bell, since you just brought it up, I got that clip too right here. Hold on, let me get it back. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. It's time doing video and production qualities. Here we go.
Tony
Watch the full
Stewart
clip
would
here.
not be proud. He would not be proud with his number 20 like that. Well,
That's
I
not a
know.
Tony quote.
Yeah, and you know what's funny too is the John Hunter Nemechek one. I didn't even know what exactly happened on that because they only show that part, and then Alex Bowman obviously getting hit. That's kind of the only footage that I saw. I'm like, what? And then he was out for the race, obviously, Alex Bowman. But it's surprisingly, John Hunter Nemechek, I think he finished top 15. I was like, okay, but
Yeah,
I had
he's
no
definitely up
idea
there.
what
He'd make a
happened.
recovery. No,
Yeah.
and it was really weird. It was almost like two separate accidents, and you didn't know if it was the checkup, and they just lost a little control coming back out of the turn, releasing and hitting the gas. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what happened there, but it was basically two accidents, one right behind the other, where they didn't even touch each other. But that this is something we saw throughout the day. We kept seeing cars lose the rear end coming out of 2 and coming out of 4, in between 3 and 4, where we'd start seeing the back end break loose. But we get through those, and then we're okay. So actually, I showed you the bell clip before I was supposed to. My apologies. I did earlier, was supposed to. But Bell's actually before that. Bell and Larson are still going at it. Hamlin's in the race up there still at that point, but Larson cruises to a stage 1 victory. So he gets first, Bell second, Hamlin finishes third, Reddick fourth, Briscoe fifth, Blaney sixth, Chase Elliott seventh, Michael McDowell eighth, William Byron ninth, and Bubba Wallace 10th. Bubba Wallace again having another good race. He's
And
staying up the track and being a factor.
definitely had egg on my face because what you just said, there was 3 Fords that finished top 10 right there in the stage. So as I'm saying, Fords are obsolete in the chat. They're making the top 10.
Well, they're not winning yet. That's the problem. And they're in such a hole now, they're going to have to be dominant the second half of the season, which the last few years have shown that's when Ford really kind of tunes it up and gets lined in, and they make a run in the manufacturer's race. So we go into stage 2, and this is where things get fun. This is where we get some real racing going on. We get a lot of action. Larson gets the start off the first position for stage 2. Truex Jr. was out there with him. Blaney, Hill, Busher, and Gibbs, they all stayed out. So they actually didn't have to, I guess, of the cars that pitted, Larson was first. Green flag for stage 2 starts. Blaney actually has the lead, so he gets that to start off turn 2. And next thing we know, Larson's all the way back up, and he's in second. Blaney's got a 1.5 second lead, but he's on those older tires, and Larson's just closing in on him at this point. It's a matter of time by watching the race and how the pits have gone. Blaney's out there to get points and just lead laps. He's not out there trying to win the race this early in the stage. But lap 100, Larson is at this point, he's all over Blaney. But a caution comes out, and this is where Bell spins out, and we get the spin with Bowman and John Hunter Nemechek. So the last clip I just showed you, that's what kind of saves Blaney at this point. I mean, would you at this point in the race, what are you thinking? Are you still thinking that it's going to be all Hendricks, or at this point is Ford showing a little bit to you where you're thinking Penske may have a chance, or Stewart Haas can come out and pull something off? Where are you at in the race at this point?
Well, in this one, see, it was a stage 2. So I thought it was funny that Kyle Larson thought he had a flat tire and he didn't. His tire came completely off in the stage 2. I did like how I believe Mike Joy was saying that Briscoe, he was saying that he thinks he was going to win, and he actually had a pretty good stage 2. I think he finished in the top 5 in that one. So I was a little skeptical with the Ford. I was like, all right, but I saw, especially coming out of the pits, Martin Truex. I thought he was going to have a significant second half because every time he was going in the pits and coming out, he was bumping up like 10 spots. So I was like, all right. I said, Martin, he's had some success before at Texas. So I was like, all right. So I think he's going to start, coming out of his sleepy coma and start dominating the race. So I was thinking something like that.
Well, speaking of, you talked about Hendricks, or that Larson thought he had a flat tire, and he lost a wheel. I got a clip of that right here. So he was actually complaining on the radio that something felt wrong in the car, and he felt like he had a flat. And this is what ended up happening. There it goes.
And I think he got penalized for that, right?
2 laps.
2 laps. Yep.
There was a 2-lap penalty there. And I was like, wow, okay, so 2-lap penalty. So, he's not going to win the race. Like, he's out. He's done. Because I'm thinking at this point, 2 laps down at Texas. I mean, it's possible to get a lap back, maybe get 2 back, but get all the way back up to the front and win. I was like, we probably don't have to worry about him winning this one. So I was kind of excited because he's just been so dominant, and I like to see different guys win from time to time. But did you have an opinion at that point? Like, did you think he was done, or were you like, it's Kyle Larson's Hendricks? They still got a chance.
No, I thought he was done. I was like, all
done,
right, he's down 2 laps. Like, and at that point, we didn't have that many cautions. So I'm like, all right, like he's probably, it's going to take a miracle to get back up there minus 2 laps. I was like, all right, he's done. And I saw Chase Elliott was doing pretty well. Like, he was coming up, I think, from 15 and he got up to 10, I think, when he finished his stage 2. But he was creeping up a little bit. I was like, all right. And then Denny Hamlin was creeping up. Brad Keselowski was creeping up. And I was like, all right, this is actually going to be a race. It might not be Hendrick. And I might have a foot in my mouth when we talked about this tonight. So I was like, all right, let's see what happens.
Well, right before this, so this had the Kyle Larson wheel coming off was because of a bad pit stop. And I don't, if you guys watched the race, you've seen the details about the new wheels, how they have this little locking pin, and you've seen it on your adjustable things for your kids or on your grandpa's cane where you push the 2 little things in, you slide, it goes to the next hole. That's kind of what the contraption is on the lug nuts now. The wheel goes on, it kind of locks in, and as the gun's spinning the lug nut on and tightening it, these 2 little silver pins are supposed to pop up and lock the wheel on so it can't come off. Well, if they don't get that on all the way, that's what happens to Kyle Larson. But what caused that caution and for that tire change to happen was actually the accident between Kyle Busch and Carson Hocefer. And I got a clip on that one too. And Busch spins Hocefer around here. I mean, it's pretty clear if you're watching NASCAR. It doesn't look like much in this clip because it's from his point of view, but you can watch the hood flap come up. Well, here, you just watch, be the judge yourself. Running down the front here, a little bit of bump. There's the flap comes up, and it's small. But when you're running at 180 miles an hour on a slick track with these tires, the smallest bump, the smallest movement of air off your rear spoiler, or in some cases we saw later in the race, off the front spoiler, or what's the splitter, I guess. You can cause somebody to spin out without even touching them at times. But this was obviously a little bit of a bump. I don't think it was dirty. To me, that's racing. I don't think there was any malicious intent there at all.
And no one even hit him. I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I mean, that was the other good thing about the accidents today. We had a bunch of them where the cars spun out, they hit the wall, they had damage themselves, but we weren't getting the big pileups where we were losing, 8 to 15 cars, and the race was being condensed in the number of competitors you had. So that's where these accidents were good. It was fun. It gave pit stops action to come in because you constantly had guys jockeying position in the pit lane. You had guys deciding to go 4 tires or 2 tires. It was a lot of strategy was going to come into the race at this point. At least that's what I thought. I thought we were going to see a lot of different pit strategies, and we were going to see cars move, maybe not the way we thought they were going to move, and we were going to be hoping and wishing for other things to happen to come down the race too. So right as this caution's going on, and this is before they get going green, Kyle Larson loses that tire. I think that's why he only got a 2-lap penalty, to be honest. I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I didn't have enough time to get to the details of it, but it was a 2-lap penalty, so he was 2 laps down. We get back to green flag racing, and it's Hamlin and Truex Jr. are side-by-side up front for the lead. Now, we know that a couple weeks ago, Hamlin ran his teammate up the track to win a race, and Truex Jr. was not happy about it afterwards. So I initially, as soon as I saw this setup for the restart, I was like, is Truex Jr. going to give him a little bump to make sure that he didn't take off on him and run him or not? He didn't. He kept it clean. Obviously, the teammates, things happen in racing and you move on. But Hamlin wins the battle from the inside lane in turn 3 and takes that lead. And this is where we start getting into these. We're getting a little bit of racing. We get a caution. We get a little bit of racing, a little bit of a caution. Well, it's lap 121. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. pinches the nose of Josh Berry. And this is what I was talking about, the air coming off the front end of the car. It was a real small move. It wasn't anything major, but it was enough to spin Berry out and send him up into the wall. I don't have a clip of that. I thought I did. I'm sorry, guys. It was a good.
It's nothing. It's really nothing crazy. He just got some air time, and then they started out a caution. Not that one. I was like, yeah, all right. I guess this should be a caution, but
it wasn't a block. Oh, hold on. I do have it here. Let me see here. Let me see if we get the whole clip or if it's just nope. It's just him sliding the wall. I can't show you that. Again, it looked almost identical to Jimmy Johnson. Loses the back end slides up, back end tags, front end comes around, taps the front end. Josh Berry was still able to race the rest of the way. That brought out a caution. We get Hamlin hits to the pits from the lead. But Gibbs ends up winning the race off pit road because he only takes 2 tires. This is where that strategy I was just talking about, a minute and a half ago comes into play. We're start seeing the 2 tires. We start seeing guys not come in at all that are going to play the fuel mileage game and hope for another penalty or another flag. So this is where things are really starting to get different. And you're seeing teams not even pit together or use the same strategy. We had teammates. One teammate would take 2 tires. One teammate would take 4. The other guy would stay out on the track. And in this situation, Ross Chastain stayed out with others. I mean, he wasn't the only one, but he was up front, so he was like the flagship guy that stayed out front. But Chastain and McDowell are up front for the restart, and they're side by side. McDowell hits a bump, one of the bumpers in the track. He gets a little loose. His back end slides out on him. And he backs into turn 4. It's another caution. And like I said, I got a bunch of these where this was all day long. It was kind of weird where we just
every almost 5 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's another one.
Every 5 minutes there was a caution.
They don't even touch.
Yep.
It just goes. Boom.
And it's right there on that turn where the bump is. Where the last, we just saw the last 3-4 cautions are happening.
I mean, so I don't know if I think this is something Texas has always had. I don't think it's been resurfaced, but I don't know why this is something. And again, I'm very unfamiliar with the Texas race. So this is new to me. It's something I'll have to watch for next year's spring race in Texas to see if it's the same. But I don't remember this bump or ever hearing about
the last time
being a problem.
I think the last time they paved Texas was like 2019 or something, or 2018.
Okay, so I mean it could be, but still they would have.
Like that.
They just went down to 1 race at Texas last year, so they were running 2 times. There 2 times a year before that, so they should be used to that. I don't know why it was such a big ordeal today, but that came back to on the right rear tire. They can adjust that spring and the dampening and what's the other word? The wedge, and if that spring on the inside of the major spring, it can get caught up, and then the wedge will go away, and then you won't have the freedom to get over the bump. It'll bounce you harder, and that's part of the reason some of these cars were spinning around. At least that's what I got from the professionals who are telling us what's happening during the race. For those of us who are not car smart.
so let me ask you this. I couldn't hear it in this race for some reason. I have no idea why. I couldn't really hear the commentary, but so Kevin Harvick on his podcast, he has fans that will message on Spotify like what word he should use during the race. I don't know if you've seen it. So I don't know if you heard like a specific word that he used that either like Jeff Burton and Mike Joy were kind of picking up late, but I couldn't hear it in this race. I don't know if you've been paying attention like that.
No, and you know what? So typically when I'm watching the race, my daughter's up, so she's asking quiet because she actually thinks cars going fast are fun. Every time we get in the car, Daddy, can we go fast? Baby, we're going fast. Can we go super fast? Baby, we're going super fast. Can we go super duper fast? Baby, if I go super duper fast, Daddy's going to jail.
Pretty much.
So, no. Why can't we go racing? Honey, calm down. You're 4. We'll get there. But no, so I don't always get to hear the audio. So I can watch it. But I will, if you find out what the word is, I will pay attention in the next couple of races and see if I can find it and see where he uses that.
I'm gonna see if he talks about it on Tuesday because he does it twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. He has his show, so I'm gonna see if he says it on Tuesday. But yeah, he does that now. He started in the beginning of the season. He was doing it, and a few times Jeff Burton, he's like, "What?" Like he didn't expect it. I forgot what one of the words was, but it was something that he would not have said, and Jeff Burton was just like really confused. But
yeah, you got to find that word, and we'll make it a game.
Yeah,
make it a game. How many times? Every time he says the word, we have to take a shot.
Well, you only take 1 or 2 shots.
Oh, well, that makes it no fun. I was saying we
Yeah,
did
it's not
5 or
fun.
6. I mean, we take 5 or 6 at the beginning of the show, and we'll see where we're at the end of the show. Now, guys, I got the results at the bottom. We'll get the result at the end, but I'm sure you don't want to read the same notes over and over again. So let's us continue. Ross Chastain ends up winning stage 2 at Texas Motor Speedway. Here's to the finishing order for stage 2. Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace gets second. Ryan Blaney, again, sneaky quiet, is always up there, it seems like, in stage 2, gets third. Eric Jones gets fourth, which is good for him. Chase Briscoe fifth. Brad Keselowski sixth. Harrison Burton seventh. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 8th, Ty Gibbs 9th, and Chase Elliott quietly sitting back in the 10th spot. Obviously, we got pitting that's going to happen now. Going into stage 3, it's like the last 105, 110 laps of the race. It's time to get real. Everybody's kind of played back. But, you haven't seen a bunch of rubbing and bumping yet. That comes in stage 3.
Yep.
But again, I think this comes back to the racers very much described the track as sketchy. They weren't sure how it was going to react. They weren't sure what was going to happen as the day went on, how wide the track was going to get. I think everybody was being really conservative because they wanted to have a shot at the end, because this is a 1.5 mile super speedway, and it really can be anybody's game, because it seems like at the super speedways is where you can get the lower budgeted teams have a better chance to win. I guess is the best way for me to say that. It's not the Penske's, the Hendricks, the Gibbs that are guaranteed to win like they are at some of the other tracks. It's almost like anybody can win. So I actually picked Ross Chastain to win this race. That was my pick for the day.
Interesting.
I like Watermelon Man, and that's probably because he's Watermelon Man. He reminds me of old-time 90s, not old-time, but 90s stock car racers mentality, the way he runs, or at least the way he ran until, they got really, really mad at him, and he was ruining his reputation. But he wins stage 2, and let's get into stage 3. So Chastain pits from the lead. Wallace stays out. Chastain ends up starting 18th. So this is the point where I go, crap. Can he get back to the front? At this point, Kyle Larson gets back on the lead lap after going 2 laps down earlier in the race from a penalty. He gets the lucky dog pass a couple times. It's not like he earned it and came back through the field, passed the leader, and got his lap back. He got the lucky dog pass. So green flag for stage 3 comes. Burton comes from row 2 to make it 3 wide to start this stage. So automatically off the bat, you're thinking, here goes, we're going to get the big one. Nope, no big one. Wallace runs 3 wide in turn 3 with him still. He gets a little sideways, collects Chase Briscoe. We get another caution. Again, like I said, we were looking for the big one. We didn't get the big one. But I have a clip for it too, so we can take a look at it real quick. Here we go.
See, this is why I like Texas, because you could go 3 wide like that. It's a big track that has some fun points like this right here.
But Wallace
But it
saves
just shows that the inside is better than the outside in this.
Oh yeah,
in this speedway.
And they didn't put any of that resin down, so you weren't getting the additional grip. But I mean, it was all day long. It was that just a little bit of air. Just mess with the downforce just a little bit at these speeds, and these cars go around. And that's why you see the safer barrier walls. If you get a good look, and you can see if you watch the race that there's a wall and there's like all these little things. Those are like cushions, and it's a safety wall, safety barrier. We learned about it when I was growing up in Indy, because IMS had to have it like one of the first tracks for the Indy cars, because 230 miles an hour hitting the wall hurts. So the safer barrier is a great thing. It's great technology that they came out with. But again, no major injuries from any of these accidents. That was a small accident. Again, nobody else really got collected. Wallace saved the car and kept running. I mean, it sucked for Chase Briscoe. He had a good race to that point. I mean, he was up there. Stuart Ross was looking good. But caution comes out there. Nothing really happens because obviously they just had cautions, or had done pit road and done tires and gotten gas and made adjustments. And I mean, I'm sure a couple guys stopped, but nobody up front where it was indicative of what was going to happen the rest of the race. So at this point, we started stage 3. We've had the first caution. Where are you at now? Like, are you still have a little hope for the Fords to come back and pull this out in the race, or are you still kind of like what's going on in your head at this point?
I mean, from the first two stages, it went from 3 Fords to 4 Fords in the top 10. So I was like, all right. And then I believe Keselowski was picking up steam like a little bit. I think in the middle of the stage, through the final stage. He was picking up a little bit. I was like, all right. And I really couldn't tell who was going to win. Then all of a sudden, I saw Denny Hamlin come up near the front. I was like, come on, man. Like, I don't need to see Denny Hamlin. So I looked it up. So it's Jimmy Johnson with 7 wins at Texas, which is insane. And then it's Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards tied together with 4. And then who's next? Denny Hamlin and Kevin Harvick with 3. So I was like, I don't need Denny Hamlin win another race. And then him talking on his podcast, accidental, detrimental. So I was like, ugh, I really didn't want Denny Hamlin to win. But now the Fords were looking good. And I really thought I was going to have to eat some crow on this show tonight. But
well, you still might. No, I'm kidding. So we keep rolling through the race. Not a lot happens there. Burton has the lead for a little bit. He looked good in that Freightliner 21 car. I know that Penske and Wood Brothers has some kind of a relationship where it comes to the engine work or what engines are being used, but that's the exact same paint job that Austin Cindric ran multiple times last year on the Deuce. And to see it on the 21 car for me was odd because I was like, hold on, that's not what Cindric has on today. And I was like, hold on, there's a 1 on that car. Who is that? Oh, it's Burton. Okay. And that was early in the race where I had that little revelation. But Burton got out there. He had some laps. He ran good for a while, but he just didn't have enough. Tyler Reddick took him over after he did a little bit of blocking. But Reddick worked him a little bit. He didn't take him out, but he worked the car, loosened it up, made sure he could get around him safe and clean.
I thought at one point Tyler Reddick was going to win it too.
Oh, yeah. I thought
he was looking Reddick, angry, especially at Chase Elliott.
Oh, yeah. I thought for sure if he had a chance, he was going to run him. But that's neither here nor there. So we get to 87 laps to go and we get our next caution. And this one to me, I'm not going to say it was deliberate, but it's racing super speedway. So Ryan Blaney goes spinning around and he goes spinning with a little help from Ryan Preece. So running down the front stretch here, you can hear him running. I love the sound of these cars. Comes in, nudge, right there, loosens them just enough. He takes off, hits the wall. Ryan Blaney's done for. Well, you think he was done for the
he wasn't done for the day.
But he got into the pits. They did enough work to get him back on the track. He ended up going 8 laps down at that point, and had to do some work the rest of the way just to finish the race. But I'm not gonna say it worked out for Penske by any means, but he didn't get a DNF. So I think that's what matters most for a guy who's in the points race right now, and he's looking good to get a playoff spot. He just needs to get his first W of the year. At that point, there's no pit stops really, except for cars that are pit laps down. No leaders. Green flag drops. Reddick leads Hamlin. And that's kind of where it's just standard racing at this point. And we get down to 55, 56 laps to go. Reddick's still in the lead over Hamlin by about 5 seconds. But he caught ended up catching up with the back of the field. And it was a lot of heavy traffic. And at this track, without the clean air, you lose the speed. And then you also can't run your preferred line because you can't just run through people. And at a track like this, guys aren't just going to get up and out of your way unless it's the last lap. I mean, they're still racing for points. They're still racing for position. They're still racing for money. So if you're the faster car, you got to find a line and you got to work your way around them. And that's kind of the best part about passing lap traffic at super speedways is, we get to still see there is still some racing to it. I mean, obviously the lap cars aren't going to go out of their way to slow down the leaders unless, their teammates in second trying to catch them. But even that, you risk getting the black flag. So, but Reddick runs into some traffic with Hamlin behind him. He shrinks that gap, and with 55 to go, Byron, he does this again. He did this last week. He was the first man into the pits to get that last round of pit stop started. He did it last week, and it got him the W. But he starts the green flag cycle for pit stops. A lap later, Reddick comes into the pits, but Reddick screwed up. His team screwed up. His stop was like 18.1 seconds. Hamlin came in with him. Hamlin beat him off pit road and jumped spots on him. So, this was kind of setting up a little more drama. Like you said, Truex looked like he was a man on a mission, and it looked like it was going to be his day. And I thought this was going to be the start of it. Did you still have that thought about Truex at this point, or did you think something else was going to happen?
With a veteran driver like that, yeah, I expected it.
So now here was the flip side of it. Truex Jr. has the same problem that Kyle Larson has. Something's wrong. A tire didn't get tightened on. He's got to go back in. He ends up going 2 laps down with a wheel issue. Now, Truex Jr. at this point in the season has had some of the worst luck for a car that has been so strong, and for a driver who is loved, from what I can tell and from watching the interviews, he is one of the most respected drivers in the entire garage. And it seems like he's getting older. He still runs good, man. He's not a guy you want to see behind you in your rear view when you're leading the race with 5 laps left. But he's just had some bad luck this year. It seems like every time he's up there, he's getting into a point to be in contention, something goes wrong. And I'm getting to a point where I feel bad for him.
You feel bad for Martin Truex?
Just a little bit. Because everybody likes him. Like if he was the villain of NASCAR, it'd be different. But everybody likes him.
I wish you went back to the Furniture Row days.
Ooh.
I think he was there. That would have been nice.
Ooh, who drives Furniture Row now? Who's got that? Gilliland? I think Gilliland.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of no names now. I think the last prominent one was Kurt Busch when he went there for that season.
Yeah. So Truex Jr. has to go back in to get pitted because obviously he doesn't want to tear up the car. They caught it before the wheel came off. But he goes 2 laps down at that point. We're getting down to the end of the race now. We're inside the last 40 with 39 laps to go. John Hunter Nemechek spins and backs into a wall again. And at this point, Logano is out front in the race. And him and 11 others, I think 10, 11, 12 other guys haven't pitted yet in that green flag cycle that started. They were hoping for the caution, waiting for the caution. At this point, there still hasn't been a caution. So Logano and those other cars behind him finally decide to take their last pit stop, and Reddick cycles back up to the lead. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, Reddick's got a real good chance to win this one and take it home. Let's see, where are we at? We're getting down to the last 20 laps is when something happened. Doesn't Hamlin Hamlin gets out there with about 20 laps left. He gets out up in front, and I think he got on the outside at least is how he made that pass.
Yep,
but Hamlin gets in the lead. Reddick gets into the wall behind him. There's no caution there because he was able to save it. It didn't slow down the race or cause any problems. There was no debris. But with 14 laps left, we get our first, end of the race caution. And it's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He spins out, makes a little bit of contact. Of course, they got to clean the track now because it's going to be a sprint to the finish. Hamlin and Elliott at this point, when the green flag drops, they start 1 and 2. And then shortly after, I don't even think they were through the first lap of the restart.
Yeah, another one.
Another caution. So, again, we get back to this. The tires, I don't think there's a tire issue. I just think the track got so hot and there wasn't enough rubber. There was too much rubber that the cars just weren't holding. And I don't know if they need to look at the downforce package for next year when they come out here or what it could be, or maybe resetting the car heights or how much they're lowering the car to the track. I don't know what needs to be done, guys. I'm not a mechanic.
Yeah. I wonder if it's the next gen cars though. Because I feel like I didn't realize that Chase Elliott, because they said when he's having some trouble with these next gen cars. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I feel like with all these accidents that's been happening and caution stuff, I feel like I definitely not know I don't know if it's true or not. These next gen cars are too light, where they we keep seeing if it's a little bump or getting too much air, they're just hitting into the walls and stuff. Because I feel like the older cars there wasn't this much problems.
So I don't know if the cars are too light. I think it's because the more downforce you put on a car, in theory, how it's supposed to work is the more downforce the car has, the slower it's actually going to get. Mm-hmm. I think they're trying to run these cars with as little amount of downforce as possible to make them go as fast as possible. That's kind of where I'm leaning on it. And I think it's going to be another year or two of working the aerodynamic packages and working with the tires and the ride heights and the spoilers and the diffusers and the front splitters. Really, I think it's going to be a little bit more experience and a little bit more data gathering to get these cars to stick a little bit better. But these are professional race car drivers. If car gets sideways, they should be able to straighten that thing out and keep it off the wall, is what I think. But at 180 miles an hour, I'm sure it's an easier thing that's said than done. So yeah, we had a series of these. Like, we'd start the race back up and we'd have a caution. We start the race back up, we'd have a caution. So after the Stenhouse caution, it's Hamlin and Elliott again, side by side in turn one. Larson spins out right away. We restart again with Elliott and Hamlin again, side by side in turn one. Hamlin pinches down on Elliott, and they stay side by side coming through and out of turn two. This point, I'm thinking it's just going to be a shootout from here on out. I'm pretty much conceded this is what it's going to be. But Elliott clears him into turn three, and it puts Hamlin into the dirty air. And this is the dirty air took enough off of the front splitter. It causes Hamlin to wreck. And I'm not going to say I was mad that Hamlin wrecked, but I
was just mad that it couldn't happen on the final lap. I didn't want to go to NASCAR overtime because Chase Elliott did not pit, I think, for at that point in time, like 50-something laps. So I was like, because I believe there were cars behind him, like dominant racers that like pitted before him. They were maybe like 20 or 30 laps. The last time they pit, I was like, oh, I've seen it so many times with either Chase Elliott where he doesn't pit like that and he loses because of his tires and all that. He starts going behind and he'll finish top 10. And I was just like, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to me.
Well, look, I got this one on clip actually. So we're going to see where Elliott's on the inside, Hamlin's on the outside. We're going to see this move that causes Hamlin to spin out and wreck for the race. So here we go. Isn't it? I mean, again, so we weren't even in overtime yet. This was. I don't think we were in over. This was
this was literally like the last two laps that they called overtime because of Denny Hamlin.
Overtime, and I think it's rightfully so. Denny Hamlin can lose at the end. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, that part I'm cool with.
I'm perfectly fine with that. It's not. I'm not like I don't even against the guy. He's kind of cocky and arrogant, and like not the best way or the fun way. He's not fun about it, in my opinion.
Yeah,
he's like rub your nose in the dirt about it, and I think that's what rubs me wrong. But you got to have villains. Villains are good for every sport. Denny Hamlin's a little old to be a villain, but and he's really not that old. He's been in NASCAR for
driver wise
17 years. I mean, he's been around for a while, so it's hard for him to be. Guys who play villains better. Ross Chastain, Ty Gibbs is young enough where he'd be a great villain. Bubba Watson got to be a villain for a little bit.
Bubba Watson, the golfer, did? No way.
Bubba Watson. I'm sorry, Bubba Wallace. My bad. Too many Bubbas out there. So you got to have your villains, and the villains shift every couple of years. Jimmy Johnson was, in my opinion, a villain for a while. Jeff Gordon was a villain for a while in his younger days. Dale Earnhardt was a villain for a while. I mean, that's why he was the Intimidator.
He was a villain before he even went into NASCAR.
That's true.
Dirt races.
When you say villain in NASCAR, it's like saying a heel in the WWE. They're not bad dudes. That's the role they have for the storyline. And I'm not saying the NASCAR is scripted, but there's a storyline every season of what happens. It's real live TV, So yeah, I mean, I like Denny Hamlin I think he does a good job being the villain because of the way he carries himself when he talks to the fans. Do you know what I'm talking about when I'm referencing when I say that?
Yeah.
When he was at the Clash and he was like, "Yeah, I beat your favorite driver," and he said that to the entire crowd, and I was like,
very Kyle Busch-esque.
Yeah, very, very Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is probably the best villain.
He's like the biggest villain. Like it's literally a 50-50 shot. No, he's older. He's got his energy drinks now. He's just making the money. I don't really think he cares anymore. Plus,
Yeah,
his brother's not in there either. Kurt. I feel like when Kurt was there, he was more of a villain. Kyle
yeah,
Busch.
because Kurt was a post child good boy. And I
To an
think at the end
extent.
of his career, he was more of a. I think he started turning to the dark side once he went over to, and he was driving the monster car for. It was the team that sold to Trackhouse.
Trying to
They're
think.
still in IndyCar. Oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart because I just.
Yeah, because I'm looking right at him too. Because I was like, oh wow, he signed there. It was almost like if you
Was
were
it?
to put in terms of like an independent type
Yeah,
racing team.
but Trackhouse bought. Who did they buy?
Uh,
Darn it! All right. Anyways, I'll get back. Who did? Hold on. I know who it is too, so when I see it, I'm gonna feel super stupid. Oh, who did Trackhouse buy? Chip Ganassi. Good lord.
oh, Chip, yes, Chip
Yeah, it was Chip
Ganassi
Ganassi.
Racing
I knew who
Sport.
it was.
Yes.
But I'm gonna give you guys. So I'm gonna show you the final restart. This is the restart that broke the streak. Yes, Chase Elliott won the race. I'm sure y'all already know that. If you didn't, sorry for the spoiler alert. But here you get to see the end of it.
Ooh.
We're gonna be quiet and let the whole audio play out because it's some good audio. And it worked. We get a little interesting here in the last lap too.
Yep,
That's
and it's
unfortunate.
fun. And you said it earlier in the show.
There it is.
Boom!
Boom.
You said it earlier in the show. You said Denny Hamlin's teammates were helping him when he won his. William Byron helped out Chase Elliott hardcore by hitting the Ross Chastain. I thought, well, see, so it's interesting. I thought William Byron finished second because they put it up in the NASCAR thing, and they were talking to Keselowski, and he said he was in third. And then when I looked it up on the NASCAR website, it said that Keselowski finished second and Byron finished third or whatever.
Well,
Like,
Keselowski
okay.
actually said that in his post race interview. He goes, "I'm not going to
Yeah.
contest that I finished third yet." He goes, "I
Yeah.
haven't seen the replay yet," and I was like, "Oh,
Yep. And
something
I was like,
I didn't think about."
I wouldn't even have thought William Byron would have finished third because Ross Chastain pretty much hits into him. So I was
Right?
like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's why I was
dude,
like,
he
"How is he?"
finished third. I was like, okay.
It wasn't adding up for me either. Not gonna lie. So that's how the race ended. Chase Elliott broke his big 42 race streak, winless streak, which is great for him. Growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, I grew up with Bill, and my dad was always a fan of Bill. So I got no problem seeing Chase win races, but he's a fan favorite because of his father, in my opinion. He gets that
Oh,
fan favorite
absolutely.
vote every year. I don't think he's really earned it personally, but he's a good, clean guy. He's had his issues. He had a really rough season last year, but he got his first win in over season and a half now. First one of this year. Another win for Hendricks. Oh my god, these Hendricks cars. Golly, and I said it all last week when I was praising Hendricks for their 40-year anniversary, which was super cool, and everything Hendricks did for all the people who work for him, awesome. But good Lord, Hendricks gets another win. Will they ever stop winning?
I think when Jeff Gordon steps away from Hendrick Motorsport, I feel like he's really the operations at Hendrick. Like
Oh, he
he wants
surely is.
perfection so bad. You could just see it in his face and stuff, especially at the 40th when they won. He was like so pumped. I feel like he really puts a lot of pressure on these guys.
Well, him and his boys have brought Hendricks lots of gold, lots of money, and a reputation that is fantastic, and they've become legendary. And they will forever, and I mean forever, be in NASCAR history as one of the greatest race teams ever built, designed, and put together. So let's
Yeah.
go over our finishing order here for the race. First was Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski second, William Byron third, Tyler Reddick fourth, Daniel Suarez 5th, Chase Briscoe 6th, Austin Dillon 7th. He finally got a top 10 finish this year. Bubba Wallace again in the top 10 at 8th. Kyle Busch comes out 9th. Carson Hocevar, best finish of the year in 10th. Joey Logano 11th. Ryan Preece 12th. Ty Gibbs ends up 13th. Truex Jr. 14th. Ty Dillon 15th. Noah Gragson, another good finish for him at 16th. Daniel Hemrick, another good finish for him, 17th. Chris Buescher in 18th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 19th. Kyle Larson did end up finishing 20th after everything he went through the day. Kaz Grala, best finish I think I've seen him have, 21st. Eric Jones, 22nd. Christopher Bell, 23rd. Zane Smith, 24th. And he had a good race going. Corey LaJoie, 25th. Jimmy Johnson, 26th. Cindric, 27th. Haley, 28th. Harrison Burton, 29th. Denny Hamlin, you finished 30th. Todd Gilliland, 31st. Ross Chastain finishes 32nd because of that accident on the last lap. Blaney, 33rd. John Hunter Nemechek, 34th. Michael McDowell, 35th. Barry, 36th. Bowman, 37th. And Austin Hill, 38th. Saw some names at the bottom of the field and in the bottom part of the results that you don't normally see. Saw some guys up in the top 15 that we're not used to seeing either because they're usually in the bottom. I guess that's what happens when top guys are in the back. Somebody's got to move up, right?
Pretty much. Listen, the Austin Dillon at 7 or 8, however they want to put it. I'm looking at here on NASCAR. It's like he came in 8th. So who knows with these results? But good for him because he really needs to step it up this year. I think he's averaging place finishes in like the mid 20s, and you can't do that with the number 3 car. You can't do that.
It's disrespectful. They need to change the number on the car if he's not going to put up championships.
Yeah, pretty much.
3 should have been retired. I'm sorry. They should have never brought 3 back.
Yeah, and well, you know what's interesting too, though, with the 3 car is that, I mean, it kind of, so like Dale Earnhardt Jr. actually did like really well, I believe, in 2000. I think he led like 105 laps to win it, and actually impressed his dad at Texas. So I was a little surprised that Austin Dillon finished in the top 10. I was like, oh, look at that! It's a little comparison, I guess. Quite funny.
Little tribute out there, right?
Yeah. But also too, R.I.P. Bob Labonte.
Yeah, another big this week. Bob Labonte passed away by his sons Bobby and Terry. I grew up watching Bobby and Terry. Bobby drove the interstate car and Terry drove the Kellogg's cars.
Oh my God, the Kellogg's.
Slot cars. I have my slot car track. Those are 2 of the cars I have for my slot car track.
Dang.
So I have it. It's probably at my mom and dad's in their basement. But those are the first two cars I had for that. So they always stick out in my mind. Do they have the points standings finalized yet or fixed up? Or are they still trying to work that out?
So it looks like it's pretty legit. So obviously Kyle Larson 1, Truex 2, Denny Hamlin's 3, Chase Elliott bumped up 2 spots from last week from 6 to 4. Byron went down 4 spots, which is kind of surprising. So he is now in 5th instead of I'm not a mathematician. So first, Ty Gibbs is at 6th. He went up 1. Ryan Blaney went down 2, so he's 7th. Reddick is 8th. He went up 1. Bubba up 3 spots from 12 to 9. Shout out to Bubba Wallace. Christopher Bell's to round it out in the top 10 is 10th. He went up 1. Ross Chastain took a kind of a big hit, went down by 3. He's in 11th. Chase Briscoe, Ford guy. Listen, Ford really kicked my ass this week. I kept talking smack about them. They're finishing top 10s and everything. And Chase Briscoe's in the top 12 and up 4 spots. And I think the biggest one for the plus would be Briscoe up by 4 points, and the lowest, Alex Bowman, went down by 4. He's 14th. Chris Buescher, another 4 guys, 13th. Logano's went down by 1. He's 15th. And Kyle Busch to round out in 16th. And I'll throw back Keselowski 17th and Suarez is 18th.
Yeah, but Suarez is already in the playoffs, so it doesn't even matter that he's in the
playoffs. It doesn't matter to him.
If you guys don't know, if you win a race, you automatically advance to the playoffs. So the guys who are automatically in the playoffs, I'll give you that quick rundown. It is Daniel Suarez, it's Christopher Bell, William Byron times 3, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin times 2, and Kyle Larson. So those guys are already locked into the playoffs. It don't matter what they do the rest of the season. In the regular season, they're in. So it is a win and you're in situation for the first 16 drivers to win. If the Hendricks boys keep winning, it's going to be a points race, and that'll be the first time it's been a points race. I think, and I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. But I think it'd be the first time it's an actual points race to get into the playoff since before COVID.
Seems about right. I could be wrong too, but yeah, that seems about right.
And again, I was away from NASCAR for a long time, but I can remember there was a points race right somewhere before Keselowski left Penske, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, because this is all kind of like new, and I didn't really like it either, as they were implemented to make it like better doing this with the wins and the points, because Kurt Busch was still racing when this happened, because he actually, I think, would have won his last year, but he got concussion, and that kind of messed him up.
Yeah, that's right.
But he had the one win, so.
But that was this week's race at Texas Motor Speedway, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was a really, really good race. It was fun. I am already looking forward to Texas next year, since we don't go back to Texas in the fall anymore.
Yep.
And you know what? You know why they don't go to Texas in the fall anymore? Because they couldn't get people to the race because it would interfere with football season. And I 100% buy that excuse, because it's Texas.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
So next week we go to Talladega, the big boy, the fastest track on the circuit and one of the most historic tracks on the circuit. So I want to give you guys like a little update here. So next week I'm going to try to be here for Sunday night show. Going on vacation with the family, with the wifey. Not really. It's not even really going on vacation. We're just taking some time. So if I can get back and get a show prepped, we'll do it on Sunday night. If not, I'll do it Monday night. It'll probably be 9 p.m. Central Time. Aaron, you're more than welcome to watch the race next week, and then make sure you have my back. If you want to come on next week, I can book you now, or you can let me know. That's fine. But again, everybody who's been here tonight, 61 people tonight live in the show. I thank you all for coming in and hanging out with us. Hit that like, subscribe, share button. Hit us on the YouTube. If you're on the X or the Facebook, slide on over to that YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Share it. Tell your friends. Tell them we're trying to put out something new from the NASCAR side. But just again, thank everybody for coming out, spending the hour with us this evening. I know it's a little longer than normal, but we had a lot to talk about. So I hope you all have a fantastic week. Have a safe week. God bless you all. Take care.